Here we go again. So, I did this kind of video back in 2024 around the exact same time. So, let's revisit the topic, but now we're going to talk about, was 2024 a good year for rap, a bad year, kind of the same thing. Before we dive into 2024, let's dive into 2023 as a very, very small breakdown. If you want to see the video that I dropped in 2023, a lot more discussion. I talked about 2 years of rap. This time I'm only going to talk about obviously last year. I'm going to link it down in the description of the video. But to give you a little bit of a breakdown, 62% was the general consensus score across 35 albums out of 100. 62%. All of these numbers come from Album of the Year, and all of these numbers are going to be user scores. The best album, according to users, on Album of the Year from last year, well, technically 2023, was Scaring the Hoes, which was Danny Brown and JPEG Mafia's record. And you're going to see a common through line, as you can probably see over on the side there. JPEG Mafia does show up once again. The worst album, I'm surprised, and not to mention it's quite forgettable now, but Blockbuster by Busta Rhymes was at a 30%. And to think that 2023 lowest point was a 30%. And once we get into the discussion of all of these albums, 30% is such a higher bar than one or a couple of these albums didn't even get close to reaching. So, as the last video I did on this topic was, take this as 35, now 45 mini album reviews. I've listened to all of these records. I can give very short takes on them. I'll see if I really agree with the ratings, if I don't agree with the ratings, and we'll kind of reach some conclusions as we kind of go through this list. So, let's start off with American Dream by 21 Savage at a user score of a 66. While I think the record is good, I think it was just more of the same for 21 Savage. Although a song like Nina is probably one of his best songs, one of Travis's best features. But overall, I think 21 Savage brought a project that we expected, and I do think that he can do better on upcoming projects. 66 is rather fair, though. Insano by Kid Cudi at a 48. A very shoddy project, to say the least, and had some of the worst songs of the year, especially when you think about songs like Willis. Very inconsistent. The direction of the project was a little bit all over the place. And for Kid Cudi coming off of Man on the Moon 3 to go to Insano, it just seems that we're just on a roller coaster of quality with Kid Cudi at this point. So then we go to All Is Yellow, which is the Lyrical Lemonade collab project with Cole Bennett. Very much a mixed bag. You still get songs like Fly Away, and you get the song with Corday and Juice WRLD. I think that was also fantastic. But it kind of has the same problem that a lot of collaborative projects have, where it is very spotty. Highlights definitely stand out more than lower lights. And a lot of times, the songs can either feel very mediocre or very forgettable. So overall, the project at a 49 is honestly pretty fair. Now, Vultures 1 is sitting at a 47 with the user score. And as I said with that review, the bones of this project are good, but they're not really fully executed or fully fleshed out to make really fun ideas. Kanye is often the worst part of this project. And out of the two Vultures records that we got this year, Vultures 1 is definitely a lot better. And I think Ty Dolla $ign brings the best performance on Vultures 1 out of Vultures 2. That's not really saying much. 47 is fair. I maybe would drop it down to maybe like a 3 at this point. So then we get to 2093 by Yeat. This was actually, according to my Spotify Wrapped, my most played artist and most played album of the year. It is somewhere in my top 20 to 25, but overall, this is a great boundary-pushing project for Yeat. It did bring some viral moments that he got with If We're Being Real and Breathe, but there was a lot of cinematic and actually more fully fleshed out and fully realized moments that had a lot of time and dedication put into them. And I think 2093 just stuck around with me for such a long time, especially particular tracks. More is probably my favorite Yeat track now. And yeah, I was overall quite impressed with that project. 73 I probably would honestly give it more of an 8. Even though it's a longer project, I do think it stands up quite well. Blue Lips with a 77. This is a project I gave a 7 out of 10 to. More time I gave with it, though, I think this project is more in that 8 kind of range. I do really appreciate that Schoolboy Q is really still experimenting and still trying out new things deep into his career. And while the bangers are there, the moments of contemplation, the moments of introspection, and the moments of kind of just this groovier side of Schoolboy Q do really show up on this project. And I think it's going to age as one of the best albums of the decade. So then we go to We Don't Trust You. Obviously, the big moment of Like That. But also, let's not forget just the great chemistry of Metro Boomin and Future. They did a couple of albums this year, but this is definitely the best one. Nice, perfect kind of track list length. It feels like it's not going for too long or it's not short. It feels like the perfect length, and Future just feels right at home and brings some amazing melodic performances and some amazing catchy verses throughout this entire project. And Metro brings some great production. Then we get to Might Delete Later, which is sitting at a 49. I would probably say this album is more like a 6. I think the emphasis on 7-minute drill is definitely bringing down the score a fair amount. It's a good project. But is it one of his weakest? For sure. It just feels kind of just thrown out there, a flash in the pan. You did get some songs like Hunting Wabbits and Trade the Truth and Ibiza that are pretty great. But overall, there's some attempts that J. Cole does to kind of go into a Drake kind of dancehall kind of sound that just doesn't really pan out. It's a project that, again, just feels like it was very slapdash and put together to kind of respond to what was going on at the time. So then we get to Genre Sad Boy, which is the lowest rated album out of the years that I've been doing this video so far. But keep in mind, the lowest was a 30. This is a 10. And I was not going to throw Little Dicky's album on here. I wasn't going to throw Netspend's album on here because, let's be honest, who's really talking about those projects? All of these projects are kind of more falling into the mainstream. Of course, I could throw on some more kind of underground and indie projects that would raise the score, but we're kind of talking about more mainstream projects here. But Genre Sad Boy, man, what a terrible, terrible attempt at whatever the heck it was doing. As I was saying, in my worst albums of 2024, either they're taking the lyrics incredibly seriously, and it kind of almost falls into being so serious that you kind of laugh at it, that it's just kind of really goofy and corny. And the performances are so limp, they're so dead. Their production is also limp and dead. Overall, this was just a mess, a hollow project. I don't really know who the target audience of this project was. Just overall, like a 10 is 100% fair if I'm going to be brutally honest. I think I gave it a 2. I would rate it down to a 1 because, man, this project... worst of the decade contender for sure, but let's talk about Almighty So 2 instead, which sits at a 76. Great trap project. I wasn't really familiar with the album catalog of Chief Keef, but Almighty So 2 just has this kind of throwback kind of feel to it where it feels fun. It feels not careless, but it feels kind of free, and it feels like it's really having a lot of fun and having a lot of kind of diversity throughout the project that I don't think we really get out of much trap projects anymore. Again, it feels like something that came out kind of more towards the early to mid 2010s when it came to trap, and I actually really enjoyed it. And I'll have to go back to some other Chief Keef projects. So then we get to 101 by Gunna. I mean, it was the same thing that I talked about last year, where it's just another Gunna project. I think Gunna does bring a little bit more solid performances on 101. I think very small increments that Gunna is getting a little bit better, but 45 I think is a pretty fair, maybe like a 5, sure, but it's just a very mediocre project. Valedictorian by Ian. Ian carries no charisma whatsoever. I feel like Ian, you could literally put any other little white person into this kind of scene, and you could do the exact same thing. There's no kind of intrinsic qualities to Ian besides him being a rich white kid, pretty much. And production can sometimes be a little cool, but overall, this is a flash on the pan artist if I've ever seen one. I didn't put Goodbye Horses on here because I don't think anyone was talking about Goodbye Horses, so Valedictorian was probably the rise and very the top. And I don't think we're going to see much of Ian much anymore. Who knows? I may be wrong, but I feel like I won't be. So Dark Times in 81. Amazing, amazing project. Jumped back up into my top 20 projects of the year. It's just a great blend of the self-titled and Ramona Park, bringing it more into a compact kind of package, bringing some really catchy moments that we have gotten many times, but I feel like this is the best of both worlds when it comes to Vince Staples. Definitely his best project of the decade. 11th Dimension by Ski Mask the Slump God. This was a return for Ski Mask after so long. And you do get those fiery, fast performances. You do get some moments of classic ski on here, but I think a lot of it just kind of falls flat. And I feel like I was kind of expecting more. And I think the sound that Ski Mask is going for, while it's unique, I feel like it's not really advancing with the times as much as we wanted to. So Hearthstone Psycho, Don Toliver at a 69. A very great return to form after Lovesick. Lovesick wasn't a terrible project. I think a lot of people look at Lovesick as like a really, really bad project or something that's just very underwhelming. It's a decent project, but I think Hearthstone Psycho does really show a return to form for Don Toliver. Going for that darker kind of rock kind of sound does really do him a lot of favors, and you still get some classic kind of Don Toliver vibes coming off of this record as well. 69 is quite fair. Bad Cameo with James Blake and Lil Yachty. An album that I didn't like at first. I liked more on my second listen and third listen, and then it just kind of fell out of my rotation. I think James Blake's production is definitely the best part of this project, and Lil Yachty, while he does bring some good performances on here, it just kind of all blends into each other to kind of just feel not really all that interesting. Still a decent project, but I feel like with this collaboration, you could have gone a little bit more out there with it. And I feel like with James Blake, he could have really spread out his wings and done something really interesting with the production, even though the production is still good. But I feel like you could have done something a little bit more. 73 is a rather decent score. Samurai by Lupe Fiasco in 82. I am a person that I listen to a Lupe project, I really like it, but I tend to fall back and not really listen to it much. And then when it comes around a year or two later, I absolutely fall in love with the project. That happened with Drill Music and Zion. That happened with Tetsuo Drogas Light. I think it's Drogas Light or Drogas Wave, one of those two. And it happened with Tetsuo and Youth. And with Samurai, I think it was a great project when it came out. And I feel like I have to revisit it because it's getting so much praise. And while I did really like that, it seemed more of kind of a straightforward project from Lupe. It seems that a lot of people are discovering there's a lot more layers to it. So I definitely need to go back and listen to the project. But 82, good for Lupe. He has been consistent this entire decade and really building a pretty solid catalog, even though Drogas Light was a pretty big misstep, in my opinion. So then we get to Death of Slim Shady by 49. 49, I find, is actually pretty harsh. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I gave it like a 6 out of 10. This is his best project in a while, probably ever since Kamikaze. And I feel like with kind of the mix of Slim Shady and Eminem, it kind of balances it out to make a somewhat decent project. Is it long? Yes. Is there moments that Eminem has some really bad writing? Yes. Is there just really corny performances and corny songs on here? Yes. But overall, I think Eminem feels the most comfortable that he has been on a project in a very long time. It feels like he's having fun with this project. I feel that he's bringing the right collaborators in. So we'll see what continues on with Eminem if he continues to drop albums. But I would give it more like a 6 out of 10. I think the album is decent. Bando Stone and the New World at a 73. A really chaotic project that reminds me of Yeezus, but maybe it's like set in the jungle type of vibe, where it is all over the place. It's trying some very different and interesting things. I think a lot of the times they do pan out, and there are some moments on this project that bring some classic Gambino like Yoshinoya as well. Pretty great project. It was in my top, I made like a top 80 list, and it was definitely there for sure. King of the Mischievous South. It was volume 2, but now it's kind of more King of the Mischievous South at 80. Just a great collection of songs. It's just banger after banger after banger. Denzel Curry just brings this really fun energy to it. It gets dark, it gets grimy, and that's the songs that I really like, especially Hit the Floor as well. The deluxe is also fantastic, and Denzel just never fails to disappoint on a project. What else can I say? So let's just drop down our expectations a little bit and talk about Y2K by Ice Spice. At a 31, I thought it was going to be lower. So Ice Spice just brings the same song over and over again. A lot of poop bars, and just a lot of just really boring and lame drill songs. And that's pretty much all you can say about this project. The deluxe did not well at all. And as I said in my top 20 or top 10 worst albums of 2024, I feel like this is the end of Ice Spice as we know it, or the beginning of the end. Faith of a Mustard Seed at a 57. I threw this on here mostly because with Not Like Us and all those songs on there that Mustard produced, I felt like this was a bigger moment. 57, this album was very, very mediocre. It's a producer project. It's a collaborative project. It was bound to happen. 57, I probably would give it more like that 4 or 5 kind of range. But the stuff behind the project of accusing Drake of stealing streams with these singles that really no one talks about anymore, and also calling Drizzy or Drake fan base like Drizzlom is insane. It's crazy. So that's why I kind of put it on here, because 57, sure, I mean, not the worst, not the best though. I Lay Down My Life for You by JPEG. As you can see on the other side there, this is the highest rated project of Album of the Year, and for good reason. It was in my top 10. It's his most personal project. I do like the rock and metal kind of influence that's coming on this project. And it definitely shows that JPEG has a lot more in the tank and a lot more experimentation coming down the pipe, and he can really do whatever he wants and do it with such great execution. So that is the first half of the board. Let's get to the top half and the second half, and let's start it off with some garbage with Vultures 2. I keep saying Vultures 3 like it's an omen, like it's going to happen. But Vultures 2 is sitting at a 30. The second worst rated album on this list, and I think 30 is too high. The project has been fine-tuned a little bit, but even still, as I said in my review of this thing, no matter how much you fix this or how much you're going to fine-tune this project, it's still a piece of garbage. You're just kind of cleaning up the piece of garbage and making it look a little shinier than it is. Again, Kanye's the worst part of this project. The mixing was bad. Everything was bad. And there's some parts on here that Kanye just didn't really care, and why should I? So Sugar Honey Iced Tea by Lotto. This was an album that actually surprised me a good amount. And I listened to 777 when that came out, and I was pretty impressed with that project too. And I think Lotto definitely has some nice long-term success. I think she brings some good performances. She does have a great amount of charisma and confidence, and it really allows these songs to really kind of stand out a little bit more. And I think Lotto as a performer is pretty good at doing that. Ultra 85 by Logic at an 80. Quite impressive. I gave this album a 7. This is on par with No Pressure. I think No Pressure just edges it out just a little bit more. While I'm not a huge fan of the skits, while I think Logic can still fall into those corny kind of tendencies that he's fallen into, Ultra 85 is when you take the concept of the storylines with Everybody and with The Incredible True Story and Ultra 85 makes the story not as corny as the other two projects. I think it has some of his best songs in a long time. The skits are at least somewhat interesting and engaging, and I think this is the best collection and best kind of cohesive story that Logic has brought on a project in a long time. And also, my apology if I sound very, like, sinus congested. I'm quite sick at the moment. Hood Poet by Polo G. Did I make a video on this? I don't think maybe I did. I can't even remember at this point, and if that tells you anything. Polo G, it's better than Hall of Fame. I'll say that. It's better than Hall of Fame. but Polo G just brings the exact same material that he's been doing this whole time. And of course, artists can fall into those kind of niches and they can build that niche fan base off that one particular sound. But Polo G just really isn't doing anything for me. There is some parts where he's at least trying like a different flow, or maybe he's working with a different kind of collaborator. But Hood Poet is just more of the same. And yeah, Polo G had the go back in 2020, and I still like that project. But man, it's been really spotty ever since. Better Me Than You by Big Sean. I was pretty disappointed at this project when it came out. I still rather am. It just feels kind of just too kind of calm and too kind of mellowed out. I think this project, it's a little bit long for the kind of sound that it's going for, but Big Sean does show some moments of maturity, sometimes shows moments of immaturity as well. But I just kind of expected more from this project. A 662, it's fair. I probably honestly would give it a 5, but I mean, it's not the worst project in the world. Now, Love Lasts Forever 44 is insane. I know I put a review of this thing out. I gave it a 1. It is a bloated, terribly mixed project, and Destroy Lonely just completely just wets the bed on this project when it comes to the performances, in my opinion. And I really don't have much to say about it. It's just a really boring, very bloated, and messy project. And this is coming from a person that liked If Looks Could Kill, which people think is absolutely terrible. I like that project. But I think Love Lasts Forever is just such a big step down, even from If Looks Could Kill. Alligator Bites Never Heal by Doechii at a 77. Big breakout year for Doechii. And this is a great kind of collage and kind of starter piece of what Doechii can do on her next project. There's a lot of promise. There's a lot of potential. There's some songs on here that I'm not a huge fan of, but I think this is a really good starting point to see where Doechii can go with an actual full-length official project. Mixtape Pluto at a 55. This album has actually grown on me a good amount. I do really like the performances on here. I do like the nocturnal kind of eerie production that this album has. There's some parts that do feel very phoned in, feel very brief, and not really fully realized, but I think Mixtape Pluto, I think I gave it like a 6 or something like that. Honestly, I probably would bump it up to a 7. I think that album is pretty decent with time. Plan A by Lil Tecca was a nice little surprise for me. It's just a fun little trap project, and I think Lil Tecca brings those catchy performances that you got, and we love you Tecca, and we love you Tecca too. Just not really much I can say. It was just a really fun project. And the 69, while I probably would give it a 6, I think it was a nice return to form for Lil Tecca. Take Care, which is Big X The Plug. Now, this project, I had no expectations to like it as much as I did. But I'm kind of excited to see where Big X The Plug goes. While the sound may sound very one-note, I think Big X does have these lyrical qualities and these moments of introspection that are interesting, especially for the sound. And I think he could, if he just changes it up just a little bit each project, I feel like there's a nice long-term career for Big X, and I'm kind of excited to see where he goes. I probably would give it more like a 7. A 7.5 is a little high for me, but still a very decent project. Same with Glorious by Glorilla. If you just turn your brain off, it is such a fun project. And Glorilla, like the Lotto record, is very, very good at showing confidence on the mic. She is just very commanding, very confident, a very commanding presence. And just with the fun and balls to the wall production all over the project, it just makes for a really fun time. Not much else I can say. Last Lap by Rod Wave. I think I said the same thing in the last video that I did talking about the year and all that. It's Rod Wave. You listen to 3 or 4 songs, they sound good, but then you realize the rest of the project sounds like those 4 or 5 songs. So take one song and you get the whole project. That's basically what it is. So we get the Lifestyle by Yee at 64. Second project of the year. Kind of more falling into familiar territory for the Yeet fan base. It's bloated. It's a step down, definitely from 2093. Does it have some fun, captivating moments? Yes, I think Forever Again is great. But I think the second half of the project really begins to falter. and it just really falls into kind of background noise for me as the project continues on. Then we get to a heavy hitter, which is Chromacopia at 84, my second favorite project of I guess last year. Amazing maturity shown by Tyler the Creator. Some of his most wild kind of production he has ever done, and I feel like this album is going to age incredibly well, and probably possibly become my favorite Tyler project. And with the streak that Tyler has been on, that is saying something. You Only Die Once by Freddie Gibbs, a very solid and good rap project. Freddie just brings something that's a little bit familiar, in my opinion, not really kind of pushing the envelope. But I think this follow up to You Only Die Twice is a really great follow up, and Freddie Gibbs is just brings some fun production, brings some good performances. Not much else you can ask for. It's just a really decent project. And then we get to Eternal Take Two by Lil Uzi at 33. They really I don't know what's going on with this project, but Lil Uzi Vert just really needs to get off the nitrous. That's all I can really say. I feel like that's what everyone talks about with this project, but it really is true. Like, this album sounds so messy, sounds so incoherent, is very annoying to listen to. When I was going through this list, I completely forgot Eternal Take Two existed. If I was to put that on my top 10 worst albums, that could honestly fall into the top 5 territory, because man, what a crazy bad album that was. But then we follow it up with Saheem by Sababy. And this is one of kind of the underrated kind of trap projects. It reminds me a lot of kind of younger Young Thug, kind of like Jeffrey kind of era Young Thug. Just some really fun performances, some really great production as well, especially on songs like 1095 Osborne Street and Viking. If you're looking for a fun kind of throwback trap project, Saheem is definitely there for you. Then we get to Soul Burger by Ab-Soul, sitting at a 64. My voice is starting to get very hoarse. But Ab-Soul, while I wasn't a big fan of Herbert, I think Soul Burger has some amazing production. I think it's the best part of this. And I think Ab-Soul just sounds really hungry lyrically on this album, especially on songs like Crazier with Jid. Oh my goodness, the lines on that song and throughout this project oftentimes will make you just reverse it just to 5 seconds just to hear the line over again. It is a very good album by Ab-Soul, and kind of underrated as well. The Crossroads by Cordae. I'm very disappointed that this didn't get the attention it deserved, because I think this project is great. While it does remind me a lot of The Lost Boy and just kind of falling back to familiar territory, I think Cordae is just a really good writer, and I think he really exemplifies that in this project. And the production overall is smooth. It's nice on the ears, and I think it was a nice return to basics for Cordae after Bird's Eye View was just kind of a mixed bag, and sometimes in that mixed bag it just got really boring. And I don't think this project does that. Now, of course, we have GNX at an 84. This is the second best project of the year according to Album of the Year, alongside Chromacopia. His most straightforward project, his most fun project, and you still get moments where you do get the fun, as I was saying, but you also get the moments of introspection and these deep lyrical exercises, like songs like Reincarnated and Man of the Garden. It gives you a little bit of everything, and it executes everything very well. It was on my top 10 for obvious reasons. Maybe in Nirvana by Smino at a 65. I absolutely love Love for Rent, one of my favorite projects of the decade. And maybe in Nirvana, while it doesn't feel like an official full project, it was a very disappointing follow-up to Love for Rent. It just feels kind of snoozy. It just feels kind of very mellowed out. Kind of the same problem I had with Better Me Than You, where I was kind of expecting something a little bit more bouncy, a little bit more fun. And while there's some songs that have that mellow vibe and they execute it good, I think this project, with it even just being 28 to 30 minutes, sometimes these songs can drag. And I feel like it's just Smino kind of falling into some very safe territory on the project. And We Still Don't Trust You at a 58. Reason why it's not around here is because I completely forgot this project dropped. It is long. There are some good songs mixed in between here. The last half of the album is more kind of songs that I would like to hear on this project. But Future, in his kind of R&B bag, it works sometimes and it doesn't work sometimes. So that is a lot of albums. So yeah, let's talk about the best. So I Lay Down My Life for You at 86 was the best. GNX and Chromacopia was second place out of 84. And then Samurai by Lupe Fiasco was at number 3 at 82%. The worst was Genre Sad Boy by A Country Mile at a 10. Vultures 2 at a 30. And Y2K by Ice Spice at a 31. Again, I think when we're going to get to the score here and we're going to get to the percentage, I want you to keep in mind that the lowest rated project of 2023 was a 30. I think Genre Sad Boy is going to make the rating of this thing drop down because of how bad this project was. But to look over this year, I feel like a lot of this, I feel like with rap, of course there was the Drake and Kendrick beef that really took over this year. There are some amazing moments in rap projects, especially towards the latter portion of the year and the beginning portion. But once you got to the middle, of course you had like Dark Times and Samurai, but there's a lot of projects that just fall very much in the kind of middle range territory. There was no projects besides Genre Sad Boy that fall into absolutely god-awful territory besides like Y2K, Vultures, and Genre Sad Boy. I feel like those are just really big outliers. But I think overall, this year, when you look at rap projects, I feel like there is definite highs, but a lot of it's definitely more in the middle. And I feel like that was a common thing that happened last year as well. So, let's get to the scores. So, out of 4,500, it scored 2,770. And when we put it into a percentage, keep in mind 62 was last year. 61.5%. So very much in the same territory. Now, of course, this is from Album of the Year listeners. I was just looking at a general consensus of what everyone thought. I do think, in my personal opinion, that 2024 was a much better year for rap than 2023 was. Mostly because the moments that we had, when the projects hit, they hit incredibly hard. And when I was looking at my best songs of 2023 and my best songs of 2024, I'm going to return back to 2024 in a heartbeat. Because I feel like with 2023, while there was kind of more emphasis I find on underground projects, I think 2024, when those times came around when rap was to shine, I think it really did. There's some really good moments coming down the pipe as well. I feel like with Doechii, we're going to get something really, truly special. I think we're probably going to get another Kendrick project within the next couple of years. Drake also didn't show up on this list at all. So I'm very curious to see what's going to happen with all of that. Not to mention as well, I'm going to be doing a video on the Drake defamation lawsuit as well coming up. But yeah, overall, while 61.5, I expected it to be a little bit higher. I do think, in my personal opinion, that it was a better year. But that's just me. But what are your thoughts on all of these albums? What are your thoughts on 2024 as a whole? Leave your thoughts and comments down below in the comment section. Again, if you want to look back at the previous video from last year, I will link it down in the description. But thank you very much for watching. Thank you for all the support I've been seeing recently. And I will talk to you again very soon.